My entire life, I have always pondered the role religion has had in our life and society. From a very young age, I have asked important questions regarding the nature of the philosophy of things like belief, the afterlife, belief in a god, and the existence of gods and supernatural beings. Even though since I was a young boy, I have rejected the idea of God, I have always wondered upon the things adjacent to religion that are very important to a lot of people. So based on this, I'm going to give my perspective on a video that piqued my interest a couple of days ago. The video comes from a channel called Finding Sky, one that I have followed for a while, and while I don't agree with everything Finding Sky says in her videos, I think she raises very important questions. Especially since many of her videos touch upon topics such as Gen Z's mental health crisis, the effects of social media in our society, and other topics that I've covered extensively in other videos and podcasts. And if you're somebody who has had chronic internet addiction, you know it's gotten pretty bad out there, especially in the meaning department. The topic of her last video caught my eye since it deals with religion, and the role she wants religion to play in her life and future family, despite being rejected by Christianity as a gay person. And while watching her video, I realized that there is a lot of truth in what she says. However, there are some aspects of religion as a whole that Finding Sky is still a little confused about. So I want to talk about this, give my perspective, and just go over her ideas. As a person who has pondered these topics almost every single day, and I've changed my views on religion over and over the last couple of years. So grab a coffee, relax, and sit beside me in the fireplace as we discuss her video.
Me and religion have always had a complicated relationship. See, I never grew up in an overtly religious household, but my mom did take me to church a few times between the ages of 7 to 10. I remember the church's youth group being pretty dope. I mean, they always had ice cream and an air hockey table, so I don't think I ever necessarily dreaded going, but the message of the pastors always seemed to kind of go over my head. Fast forward to my teenage years when I came to the realization that I like
big booty Latino.
And instinctively, I rejected religion entirely. Because in my head, gay and God were two things that just didn't go together.
In the beginning of the video, Finding Sky describes a religious upbringing that is very common in the 21st century. Myself included. This is a type of childhood where if you are Catholic, you're probably going to get baptized, you're probably going to have a first communion, but otherwise your parents don't really force strong religious ideas on you. Things like belief in God or prayer might or might not have a strong influence over you as a person, over your spirituality, the things you believe are true, but overall I think we're very privileged to live in this kind of society. Because this leads into some of the other topics in the video, and I think it is important to state that we don't live in a society where religion is basically enforced by us, either by law or other subjects. And of course, there are countless factors in what constitutes a religious upbringing in many people. There are more conservative families that take this topic in lighter terms, whether you live in a small community where religious belief has a central role, or you live in the big city. Sky then talks about how she realized she was gay, and the impact that had on her view on religion as a whole. I love how bluntly she puts it, gay and God just didn't go together. I understand this feeling, but it is simply a false dichotomy. I will talk about this more soon, but there's a heavy implication throughout the video that by the word religion, Sky really means Christianity, specifically Protestant Christianity in the context of the United States. And of course, you could argue that these ideas apply to the major Abrahamic religions such as Judaism and Islam, but I think it is important to have this in context because religion is a word that has been used in many contexts and is just very all-encompassing.
In fact, I started to have some pretty strong feelings against religion. How were some words in an old book gonna tell me how to live my life? Was the threat of going to hell just some fear-mongering tactic made to control people? Was religion just some way to make our insignificant life appear significant? I didn't feel comforted by any of these ideas and started to feel like all of it was just a bit of a scam. But recently, I've started to think about religion in a much different way.
This is a very important idea, and there seems to be a larger amount of people who reject religion for the same reasons that Sky describes here. This describes perfectly the journey of most edgy teenagers who discover r/atheism and read the God Delusion for the first time. And I know because I was one of those teenagers. Now this might sound controversial, especially as somebody who grew out of that phase, but I think it is totally justifiable to have an angry atheist phase. Arguing at the dinner table, telling people about this new perspective that you found, I think these are all perfectly reasonable ways to react, especially after you've been told a certain set of beliefs your entire life with no alternatives. Add to the mix that accepting your sexuality often comes into conflict with things like religious beliefs, and it can cause serious issues in a lot of people. Things like self-esteem issues, identity crisis, and also repression, so I think it is very important to have this in consideration. However, I truly hate the notion that sexuality is one of the main reasons why people turn away from religion. Or God forbid, another thing to add to the left versus right culture war debates that are going on right now, but the truth is that both religion and sexuality are very complex topics on their own, and it is important to take these issues seriously and objectively if we're going to make progress as a society. As I grew out of that edgy atheist phase, I realized that there's a lot more reasons why people adopt a certain religion. It is much more than a belief in a god or non-belief in a god, and that ties into Sky's next point.
And I think what's led me to reconsider the potential importance of religion is seeing what the world looks like without it. My generation has predominantly lost sight of any sort of god. There's virtually nothing connecting the members of Gen Z except for intense nihilism and infinite doom scrolling. We eat, sleep, scroll, work, and die. There's no strong set of values holding our lives together. There's no community, no greater purpose, no afterlife. People don't even want to have kids anymore. We don't seem to care what or if we leave anything behind. And I think a big potential cause of these issues is the decline of an overarching religion. Regardless of whether you believe a god actually exists or not, religion as an ideology is supposed to provide a set of values that aids in the function of a society. It encourages being kind and generous to your neighbors because you're stronger as a community. It discourages envy because it separates you from people and leads to dissatisfaction.
This is something that I totally agree with. There seems to be a disturbing new era that we have entered as a society with the rise of the internet and social media. This is a subject that my favorite book of 2024, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, talks about. If you could ask me to beam any information into the brains of every single person on Earth, it would definitely be this book. Haidt talks about the rise of depression, anxiety, and a variety of mental disorders, and how the excessive use of social media is a direct cause of this. Finding Sky has also covered these topics in some of her videos, and I recommend checking them out. And if you've been on the internet far more than you should over the last 2 decades, you know what is out there. You know the kind of garbage memes that are on the front pages of Reddit, to the Orwellian never-ending battlefield of the trenches of Twitter. The overall trends are far more sinister. Decline in school performance, drug use, risk-taking behaviors, apathy, self-image issues, lack of direction in life. These are all things that many people in Gen Z experience. According to an article, rates of adolescent depression increased from 8.1 in 2009 to 15.8 in 2019. It might be why a show like Euphoria became one of the most popular in recent years, because people relate to these things. Obviously, these are very complex issues, and I don't want to imply that social media is the only cause of these things. But one can't deny the effects that conditioning young minds to 8 hours a day of scrolling through TikTok and porn is doing to them. Additionally, we can also include the effects of a hedonistic mindset, low self-control, addiction, ultra-processed food, vaping, and a variety of other issues that are affecting our society in so many ways. If it is getting this bad for Gen Z, I can't even imagine the challenges that Gen Alpha or the iPad kid generation is going to have to face in the future. And I don't want to say that the internet is all evil. There are many amazing things that we've gotten thanks to the internet and social media, like connections, being a part of communities, discovering things and learning topics that you never could imagine 100 years ago. Also people achieving political change and also boosting freedom of expression in other countries. But one needs to fix the worst aspects of it if we're going to trace a better future for everybody. And I highly agree with Sky, we need meaning in our society, not whatever the fuck it's been replaced with. However, I think it is important to separate these two ideas, one being the belief in God or the claims of most religions, in this case Christianity, and the other one is the search for meaning, something that is more the main focus of this video. The idea among non-religious folks is that you do not need a religion to access these kinds of meanings. Why do I need to believe in a god in order to answer questions such as what is good and evil? How do I build meaningful relationships and communities? How do I use my limited time on this earth? The religious person might object that while this is true, it's not quite the same as the meaning that religious belief offers. My personal perspective is that whether it is true that you do not need to believe in a god in order to find meaning, it is the community aspect that is missing from secular or non-religious spaces. And that is the glue in a way that differentiates these two scenarios, and the main point I believe she is trying to make. It is certainly possible that in the future secular places will achieve this, especially with philosophies such as humanism, but I guess that we will have to wait and see.
But despite agreeing with many religious sentiments, there's one little problem. I'm gay, which is apparently not acceptable in basically any religion, so it's kinda hard to support something that doesn't support me back. I would feel a bit ingenuine claiming a religion that condemns something that is inherently and unchangeably a part of me. I think people make the assumption that gay people reject religion, but if you're anything like me, I don't reject religion. Religion rejects me.
This is very true, and sadly, one of the main causes of homophobia is the prevalence of religion in our society. From outright being told that you're gonna burn in hell eternally, in certain more conservative communities, to just basically never touching the subject or speaking in it in quiet tones, or just to say nasty things to gay people, as in the case of the communities I grew up with. We cannot ignore the elephant in the room, and we have to talk about this subject whether you're religious or not, because chances are that you know a gay person. And that gay person is, number one, not gonna change their sexuality for you or their community or anybody else. And two, they 100% have suffered discrimination on the base of these erroneous beliefs that the community upholds.
If you choose to adopt a certain religion, I believe you also adopt the responsibility to uphold the values of that religion. So even if I wanted to be a part of one, am I not just instantly excluded for failing to uphold one of its core values? I've wrestled with these ideas for a long time, and I want to be clear that I'm not claiming to have the right answers. I'm just sharing my perspective as someone who appreciates the values of religion, yet whose existence essentially defies God. Unfortunately, I feel like like I would weaken a religion by claiming one. There's no way for me to adopt a religion without inadvertently tainting it. God's not a buffet. You can't choose one ideal to follow and then ignore the next. If you choose to follow a religion, there should be a deliberate and conscious devotion to it. Something that I think about a lot is how I want to raise my future kids. And more often than not, I come to the conclusion that I would much prefer to raise them religiously. As I've mentioned in this video, I do think that religion is overall a good thing. The values in and of themselves are beneficial. But if I want my kids to be religious, then shouldn't I be religious too? I mean, that's kind of the predicament that this whole video is about. I feel drawn to religion for a multitude of reasons, yet I don't feel like I belong in it. Would I weaken the symbol of Christianity by adopting it? Is it immoral of me to represent a religion that my sexuality is rejected in? I don't know, dude.
She describes perfectly the concept of cafeteria religion, which is the belief that you can just pick and choose the parts that you like from your religion, just ignore the nastier ones, or even just outright not know about them. But the most important question is, what religion follows the ideas of their holy book to perfection? The Catholic Church has changed their ideas countless times over the past, and several religions just like split off into different ones. They fight over theology, over like specific passages in the Bible. New religions are being created every single day, and every one is like different from the other. One could argue that the Inquisition follows perfectly the teachings of the Bible. However, in our modern society, this would be appalling. The truth is, religions are malleable. They change, they morph, they split off into different new religions all the time. Heck, there's even progressive Christianity, which openly accepts LGBTQ people on the basis of Jesus' teachings, if that's your cup of tea. The truth is, with religion, there is no objective way of determining what is true and what is not true. What is the right meaning that we should adopt? For this, we have to take a deeper look into the underlying philosophical principles behind these ideas. What is right and wrong? Is homosexuality tied to morality in any way? What is the meaning of life? Is there an afterlife? I think it is important to point out that she does not discuss whether God is real or not, if Jesus resurrected, or any of the claims of religion or Christianity in general. And I get it, I mean, it's not really the point of the video. But I think that it is important to have a clear view of these questions before moving on to the next stage of religious effects on society. I've always said that there are not 4,000 religions out there, or 10,000 religions, but more like 8 billion religions, because each mind is their own world, and they are changing all the time. And they might clash with other forms of thinking, their community, etc., which is an example right here with this video and with my video. So I don't think that Sky should worry much about this issue. If you want your children to go to a religious school while being part of a strong community with specific values, that is amazing, and you do not need to be religious yourself in order to do this. Nobody's going to judge you for having conflicting ideas or keeping a scorecard of how well you're following the tenets of Christianity. The title of your video states, "I want to be religious," but nobody asks you to sacrifice your beliefs about the fundamental truths about the universe, or your value as a person with same-sex attraction. But you should have open conversations with your children about the belief in God, homosexuality, the afterlife, philosophy, things that really make people ponder these questions. The most important thing is to encourage open and critical thinking, not to impose dogmatic beliefs of because God said so or because their religion said so, but instead encourage them to think for themselves to reach their own conclusions.
I just find myself rejecting the apathetic, valueless nature of my generation. I've seen what it does to people, not having a greater purpose or anything to strive for. I was in the same boat for a long time, feeling like life was meaningless and like there was no point in trying anything at all. In theory, a lack of religion should encourage people to go seek their own meaning, but in practice, that's just not what happens. It's more like, oh, God doesn't exist? Great, I can do whatever I want. Then you get sucked into the endless vacuum of overconsumption and indulgence. Like, is this really a better alternative? Who is benefiting from rejecting religion? I think my generation and those to come would benefit from a return to some amount of traditional values. Religion was once the foundation of society's ideals and morals, but now the media is the main source telling us what's right and wrong. And that's scary, because if you don't consciously choose a value system, then the media will unconsciously choose it for you. The media will inadvertently become your religion if you don't have another value system in your head monitoring it. So what would you rather? Follow a value system that facilitates a productive society but might be a little homophobic, or subscribe to whatever idea is trending in the media? Great options here. I'm not prescribing that you choose religion or don't choose religion. The truth is, everybody has a religion. Some people are their own god, others idolize a celebrity. We all have a god. Just choose yours carefully.
So, to finish off the video, I'm going to cover again what I discussed before. Gen Z is going through a very serious crisis right now. There is no denying this. The internet has created a never-ending buffet of identities, belief systems, and just people are confused about what they want to believe. But while these communities have their benefits, they also create echo chambers. People become addicted to these ways of thinking, and trust me, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen what this does to people. However, she also talks about a strong point that I disagree with, and this is that a non-belief in God leads to nihilism, which means that in order to combat these new problems, we have to turn back to religion. Here, she expresses a very profound misunderstanding of existentialism. While it is true that many people create self-destructive ideologies based on this newfound freedom, there is also a lot of good that people can achieve out of this. And the way that she describes the media as the new way of people forming their own meaning, well, don't religions have their own media? Like, don't they have their own books, TV shows, ideas that they express throughout the media? Isn't just religion a big part of that? But anyways, I'll give some examples of existentialism being applied positively to one's life. You can ponder the meaning of morality, beauty, love, and value for what they are, not because an old book said so. You can take care of others, your mind and body, reject the garbage of modern society, because it is the right thing to do, not to adhere to the values of the religion of your choice. In my life, the meanings I have chosen to adopt include becoming a better person, exercise hard after neglecting my body for years, loving others, appreciating good art in the form of film, games, and music, rejecting harmful habits and ideas, taking walks in nature, focusing on my career so I can ensure a better future for myself and my family, and finally, not taking life too seriously if I don't have to. So as a final question, I want to ask Finding Sky this. Where do these values that you want to uphold come from? Is religion really the source of them, or is there an underlying principle behind it? There are many causes for the rise of depression and the meaning crisis we have today, and one of those is one that me and Finding Sky agree on, and that is the excessive consumption of social media and the way we use it as a society. If you want to listen to my perspective on this topic, check out my video on why I deleted some of my social media sites such as Twitter, Reddit, and Threads. If you like this video, please follow this channel and my other channels in order to access more videos on philosophy, on commentary, reviews on movies, video games, all that kind of stuff, and we'll see each other in the next time. That is everything for today.